I want to check on you. I want to make sure that you're good, that you're in a good space. I want to employ something that will be helpful to all of us. Before I get into it, I want to explain. If you are an overthinker, the way I am, many times my thoughts would be trapped into my mind. And as I've said many times before, sometimes the thoughts that we have ruminates for so long that it causes us to overthink situations and have a pure attitude. We also take in situations and make it worse than what it really is. I want us to stop doing that. So one of the things that has really helped me is to journal. You can get any kind of notebook and write down all of your thoughts and write down everything that you're thinking of, but I want you to get a dedicated notebook to just journaling. It's not to write down information from friends or whatever. It is your journal, your go-to. So while I'm doing this mental check, I want to ask you some questions. I want you to listen to this episode once just to hear it through. And then I want you to replay it with your journal, and I want you to answer these questions. Many of the questions may not be exactly relevant to you, but I do want to employ a thought process and you being able to write things down. In the last month or so, have you been angered? And if so, why? Was it a triggered response? Was it something that you could recall from your past, maybe your childhood or your teenage years, your early adulthood? What was that trigger for you and why did it come out? What did the circumstance entail that triggered you? And if it wasn't a trigger, if it was just purely anger, why did it anger you? And was the anger on a scale to 1 to 10? If it's over 5 to 10, tell me why it exasperated to that point. Write it down. Gauge the response. And then ask yourself, was it really worth in that moment of getting that upset? There are no wrong or right answers. But I do want you to write it down. And I want you to write and speak through your heart and your mind and put it on that piece of paper. Did someone say something to you that really hurt you? And in that hurt, did you find out something about that person and how they felt about you? If so, write it down. And write down exactly what hurt the most and why it is that you came to the conclusion that that hurt bothered you so. Write it down. And then under it, I want you to write down if you feel that the relationship between you and that person based on the circumstance could be mended or not. And if it is, would you still continue being the same with that person, same energy? Or do you feel that your likeness or love for that person dwindles down? And how will you walk through this circumstance again with this person? How will you manage this connection? Write it down. Have you been getting rest? Have you been resting as much as you need to? What's been weighing you down? What circumstances has pulled you away from good rest? What are you worried about? What keeps you up at night? What is taking you away from normalcy? Why are you tossing and turning? Are you waking up at certain hours, early in the morning, 2, 3, 4 o'clock? Write it down. And if you find yourself waking up 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, I want you to write that time down in your journal. This is important because there is a schedule of your thoughts that are waking you up at a certain time, and you need to write it down. And if you can, in the moments in which you write it, or wake up, write down what it was that made you wake up and how are you feeling. Write that in your journal. Where are you now? How do you feel? Are you happy? Are you content? Are you sad? Do you go through bouts of depression? Are you confused? What is your state of being and why? What are the circumstances that are underlined under these emotions? Is this a temporary feeling of happiness and sadness, or bouts of depression, confusion, anger? Is it temporary, or is this an ongoing thing? And if so, write down how long you've been feeling this way. And again, write down the circumstances that lead to these emotions. Next, ask yourself, do I feel myself improving or declining? And I want you to go on like this whole spill and write down all of your emotions on the piece of paper. It would be great if you could write down improvement on one side and your decline on the other side, and make a list under those two words. What is it that you are improving with? What do you see yourself doing that is better? And then if you have some declining moments, things that you need to work on, write that down as well. Write down everything. Don't spare yourself. Don't hold back. One of the things about journaling and writing things down, it's you. Nobody else is in the room, right? It is you. It's your thoughts. It's just your authentic thoughts and how you honestly feel. And the biggest thing about journaling is being honest and not having to be anybody else or do any other thing. You can be you. Where do you want to be in the next year or so? Where do you see yourself? What is the goal? What is it that you want to begin? Or what is it that you want to improve? Or what is it that you want to have that would be a positive in your life? That could be a person, that could be a thing, that could be anything that you've been really praying on. What is that? Write that goal down and be honest. And then ask yourself in that year, is this attainable? Is it far out of your reach? Or do you think that the goal of a year is a mindful one that can be attained? And write down why. Then write down what you're going to do to ensure that this year goal will be achieved. What are you going to do? What active work are you going to put in? The last thing I want to ask you for you to write down in your journal. It's very important. Do you feel important? Do you feel seen, heard, and appreciated? Do you feel that the person that you are is helping or entwined, interconnected with other people? And if so, in what way? Name those qualities, and if not, write it down as well. I think when we do self-reflection and we talk about the things that is so difficult to face, like we ruminate in our minds and we think about it, it goes for a second, and then sometimes we just let it go because we don't want to think about it too long. I want you to write these things down because this is important. These are your true feelings. This is how you feel. When you have written all of these things down, I want you to read these. You don't have to do it in a day. You can take a certain subject and concentrate on it per the questions that were given and work on them. Work on a plan. Ask yourself these deep questions, and what are you going to do about the answers that were given? For many people, this is a great way to see some change within yourself, because again, when we think in our mind, it's stuck there, and we have the option to want to forget about it, to leave it alone, to not rehash it or rethink it. But it's something about writing your own words down in your own paper and reading your thoughts at a certain moment in your life with true honesty, reading them again and again in the process of 3, 4, 5 months, asking these questions again and seeing the improvement that you've made. But one thing about self-awareness and self-reflection also is that there has to be a conclusion. There has to be some form of answer that is going to lead you in a way in which you want to go. You cannot always stay stuck. You cannot always think that everything is hunky-dory because you don't want to face it. Journaling gives you this moment to just be real. And can I be honest? In many circumstances, whether it is, with people or just your job or whatever it is that you do, many times you have to, not purposely, but put on a face. You could be feeling down in the dumps, but you have to show up and smile, right? And then when you go back home, it's your honesty because you're in your space. But how much of that do you face? Honestly, because one thing about it is that when we keep doing and behaving the same way, it kind of becomes who we are in a sense. So undoing certain things is not impossible, but it's hard because you've never had to face you and you didn't want to because you ran away. Journaling gives this sense of freedom of expression and honesty. It's yours, it's sacred, it's held within your heart. And you're able to say everything that your heart and your mind and your body really feels with reflection. Reading those words and making amends to change so much about the things you may not like at this certain point in your life. Change is so good. I want to do these often, so I will revisit this check-in. I will ask similar questions, and I want to know. I want to know the improvement. If you are on Spotify and you're listening, I will pose a question for this episode and I would love for you to answer honestly. If you are listening to Apple or any of the other podcasts, I want you to put some commentary under the reviews about this episode and how you journal and how you want to see improvement in your life, or if this is helpful. And if you want to do these mental check-ins, I think it is needed. I think many of us are not provided the space to just let go. Many times the people that we are talking to, they give advice, they give what they can give from their perspective, but it doesn't suffice because we need a little bit more. But in order to be aware, we have to want to be aware. And writing these things down again makes us see the reality of what it really is. Thank you for being here. If you would like to donate and support the podcast, you can do so. There's a link at the end of every episode. You can tap in. You can do a monthly donation, or you can go to lisamarie.info and scroll all the way to the bottom and just donate a small donation. Also, I also want to tell you too, if you are a business and you want a commercial or something on the podcast, let me know. I'd love to. I finally figured it out. So you can hit me up, seasondialogue@gmail.com. I'd love to discuss something with you. All right, you guys, I'm going to head on out. I hope the rest of your day is well. Love always, Lisa Marie.